All right, YouTube, you wanted the best, you got the best. The hottest band in the world, Kiss. How's it going, Revivalists? Simon here from CD Revival, and you might have guessed it by my intro that today I am going to do the studio ranking of all the albums by the band Kiss. One of my favourite bands of all time, a band that gets like way too much like crap for being, you know, basically Kiss. I've rated all the albums, gone through. I mean, there's a lot of people and they just, you know, live to slag off Kiss. You go and rate your music. There's people that just don't even like Kiss, but will just go on and slag a Kiss album off. Makes me kind of sad because, you know, I love Kiss, always have. Listening to their albums, it just makes me happy pretty much every time you listen to any Kiss album. They're all really great. There's none that I really don't like. So yeah, it's taken me a while to go through and decide the order of my ranking. So yeah, put quite a lot of time into this. And so I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy Kiss. And if you don't, then, you know, maybe this video will help you choose Kiss. So yeah, I'm going to go through and ranking all the studio albums, show you the other bits I've got. Including the studio albums, I'm going to also rank the solo albums that they did in 1978. So they'll be in the ranking as well. So yeah, pretty much everything. Could be a longish video, so buckle up and enjoy the ride. So 24 albums including the solo albums. First one is number 24, and it is one of the solo albums, and it's the Peter Criss solo album from 1978. And as I say, I do enjoy pretty much all the Kiss albums. This one I'm not a massive fan of. Really not a great album, to be honest with you. Certainly the weakest, obviously, of all the catalogue, and definitely the weakest of the solo albums. Peter's voice is all right, as you say. You know, he does his thing. It's quite jazzy, quite sort of. There's a few ballads on here, which are probably the best ones on here. Produced by Vinnie Poncia, who did a couple of albums for Kiss. Producing wise, he did Dynasty and he did Unmasked as well. And he does a decent enough job on this, but really not a lot to write home about on this one. I'm not going to say too much more about it, apart from this one's for completists only. It's really not a great album, and as far as a Kiss album goes, it's really not a great Kiss album. So yeah, should do better. Not really. My next one, number 23, another one of the solo albums, Gene's solo album from 1978. Once again, a few listenable tracks on this one, but it's not a great album. I think this was the best selling of all the 4 solo albums as well. But yeah, it's not fantastic. Produced by Simmons himself and Sean Delaney, and it's got a bit of an all-star cast on here of various people. Joe Perry's on here, Bob Seger's on here, Rick Nielsen, Donna Summer, Helen Reddy, and Cher, who I think Simmons was actually dating at the time. Radioactive's a fairly decent track to start off with, Kiss-esque. And it's got a redo of See You in Your Dreams from Rock and Roll Over, which apparently he didn't like the way that was done originally, so he's done that again. It's got the Disney tune When You Wish Upon a Star, which apparently he's loved since he was a kid. And it's got, you know, it's a bit funky, it's just not that great. It's really quite a disappointing album. And that is my number 23. Not a good album at all. So these two are the only two that I wouldn't really choose to listen to be honest with you. So that's Gene from number 1978, number 23. My number 22 is Carnival of Souls, Final Sessions. This is their 17th album in total, and this one came out in 1997. Now, produced by Toby Wright, Simmons and Stanley, and this is their longest album, clocks in at 60 minutes and 11 seconds. And when I first heard this, I really did not like it. And it has grown on me, so I do actually enjoy the album. It is way too long. Starts off quite strongly and does tail off a bit, although the last song, which Bruce Kulick sings, I Walk Alone, is actually one of the better ones on here. Hate's Okay Rain I quite like, which is Paul Stanley one. Master and Slave I quite like. Childhood's End is probably my favourite on here. Gene does that one. And yeah, and it starts, Never Goes Away is okay. But it's, yeah, obviously you're probably aware of it. If not, it's like they sort of went with the times, went for a more of a grungy sound. Sounds very Alice in Chains to me. It's got that whole sort of feel to it. And not a bad album. It is enjoyable. It's a bit overlong for me, but it's not a Kiss album as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's not their normal style. They've gone away from their sort of party, blah, 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 which I really like. That's what I like about Kiss. When I listen to a Kiss album, that's what I want to hear. I don't necessarily want to hear grungy, stuff. If I want to listen to that, I'll listen to Alice in Chains or, Pearl Jam or whatever. But when you listen to Kiss, you want to hear a Kiss album. And this is not that awful cover, probably the worst cover they've ever done. Yeah, it wasn't even supposed to come out. They put it out because I think it had leaked on the internet. And they were obviously in the business of like doing their reunion tour. And they put this out, and Bruce Kulick had a lot to do with it, and I got a lot of time for Bruce Kulick, good guitarist. Obviously Eric Singer does the drums on this. And it's got the only song with Bruce on vocals on it, but say not a bad album. It's listenable. It took me a little while to get into it, but as far as a Kiss album, it's not for me. But I do like it, and it's number 22 for me, Carnival of Souls. A lot of people do like it. A lot of people really don't like it. I think it's all right. Anyway, we digress. Going on, number 21, Monster, final album, 20th studio album from 2012. Even though it's at 21, obviously the solo albums kind of mess it up. But anyway, 20th actual Kiss album, final album, came out in 2012. Produced by Paul Stanley with Greg Collins. It's okay. It's a listenable album. Hell or Hallelujah was the lead-off single. Wall of Sound, Freak, Back to the Stone Age. It's an okay album. It's not bad. I've got nothing really too much to say about it. As far as their final album goes, it could have been better. Long Way Down's quite a good track. There's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing earth-shatteringly good about it either. It's a pleasant listen, and it's not their best, to be honest with you, but still not bad. But it sits at number 21 for me, and that's Monster, their 20th album. Number 20 is their 19th album, and that's Sonic Boom. This is the first one they did with Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer. And people have people have slated Thayer and Singer for taking on the makeup of Frehley and Chris, and I kind of agree in a way that they should have had their own makeup in the way that Vinnie Vincent did, in the way that Eric Carr did. I don't think it was that cool for them to wear the makeup of Ace and Peter. I can see why Gene and Paul decided that was going to be the way to go, but yeah, for me it's a bit, I don't think it's like really awful thing to them to do, but at the same time it would have been cooler if they'd have had their own personas. But it's a bit weird in my opinion. It's not the right thing to do. But anyway, the album Sonic Boom, do prefer this quite a bit more than Monster. This is a sort of like mega pack with like 3 discs in it. So you've got the album, you've got Kiss Classics, which is like re-recorded versions of their early songs, with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer on drums and guitar, and they are good musicians obviously. And you've got a Live in Buenos Aires DVD with about 5-6 tracks on there as well. Really quite a decent album, this one. Some good bits on here. Modern Day Delilah's really cool. Russian Roulette I really like. Yes, I Know Nobody's Perfect, that's a good one by Gene. Things like Hot and Cold, All for the Glory, Dangerous, they're all good tracks. I do enjoy it a little bit more than Monster. I think it's got better sound generally. It's a bit more old school. Produced by Paul Stanley and co-produced by Greg Collins once again. Say the Kiss classics is all the old stuff, so you know, you've got Juice, Detroit Rock City, etc on there. But yeah, of the two sort of post reunion albums, if you like, after Psycho Circus, Sonic Boom is the better of the two. And yeah, I do enjoy that one quite a lot. It's got a good sound to it, and yeah, it's not bad at all. So that's my number 20 is Sonic Boom. Number 19, Paul Stanley solo album from 1978, produced by Paul himself and Jeff Glicksman, whoever he may be. Yeah, the most Kiss-like of the solo albums, and quite decent. Falls off a bit towards the end, but Tonight You Belong to Me I think is really cool. Move On's a good up-tempo track. Ain't Quite Right, it's not bad. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me, it's all very sort of Paul Stanley bravado kind of thing. Take Me Away Together as One is not bad. You got Hold Me, Touch Me, Make I Think of You When Think of Me When We're Apart. That's very ballady, very soppy. That was the single as well. Loving Change is not too bad, but yeah, I do enjoy this one. It's a decent album, to be honest with you, Paul's one. And yeah, definitely the most Kiss-like of the solo albums, and yeah, pretty enjoyable. My number 18 is the last of the solo albums. This is the Aces one. People will probably be up in arms because I know people hold this in very high regard. This is from 1978. This is the original version. The other ones I've got are all the remasters. This is the best of the solos, although I think it is patchy. Produced by Ace and Eddie Kramer, who's done a lot of stuff with Kiss, probably some of their best albums. Anton Fig plays the drums on this. He would go on to drum in Peter Criss's absence in a sort of ghost way on a couple of albums, which we'll come to shortly. But yeah, this one is a bit of hit or miss, I think. Rip It Out's a brilliant track. Speeding Back to My Baby is good. Snowblind and Ozone, they're both really cool tracks. What's on Your Mind is a bit meh. New York Groove is the single which did really well, actually hit the charts, the only single from any of the solo albums which did chart. But it's a very poppy song, it's okay. I'm In Need of Love, Wiped Out and Fractured Mirror as an instrumental to finish it off. It is a decent album. It's got a lot of good stuff on it, but once again it does waver in and out here and there. The songwriting suffers a little bit, but you know, Ace sounds pretty cool for the most part, and it's a decent album. And apologies if you think it's, you know, like the Second Coming of Christ and you think it should be well higher. That's cool, you know, everyone's opinions are different, but I think it's good. As I say, I don't hate any of these albums. I think they're all like really good. Enjoy listening to them a lot. And to have something like this in 18th place is, you know, it's upsetting, quite honestly, because it is a great album, but they've done a lot of stuff, so, you know, there's got to be an order somewhere. So that's my number 18. 17, I've got Crazy Nights. That's their 14th album, came out in 1987, produced by Ron Nevison, who did a lot of stuff back in those days, like with Ozzy Osbourne and Heart as well. So yeah, super poppy sound. They've gone for sort of chart success on this one, which to be fair they did achieve, with this lead single Crazy Crazy Nights. Reason to Live was another single which did really well, and it's an okay album. I saw them on this tour actually at Wembley Arena. That was decent and probably one of the loudest concerts I've been to. But yeah, some good tracks on here. No 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 is a really good fast one, starts with a like really good guitar solo, and then Gene is probably the fastest one on here. I really like Turn on the Night, which is super commercial but like super catchy, really good fun track. And yeah, there's a lot to like, you know, Fight Hell to Hold You, Bang Bang You, it's all super cheese but, you know, really poppy. Things like My Way is a bit too far in that direction, I think. Yeah, Thief in the Night's alright. I think that was on a Wendy O. Williams album originally. Good Girl Gone Bad. Yeah, there's a few average tracks on here, but with Bruce Kulick, Eric Carr on guitar and drums. Yeah, I remember when this came out, and it did do the business chart wise, so fair play to them for that. And I think it's a listenable album, but say it's very chart orientated, and you know, if you take it as that, then it's okay. 17th place, Crazy Nights. 16, Hot in the Shade, 15th album, 1989, produced by Simmons and Stanley. A lot of tracks on this one, 15 tracks. Remember when I bought this on CD when it came out, and I like it. I like all their stuff, but yeah, I do like this one. I think this one gets a lot of crap for being, I don't know why this one gets a lot of crap, but it's honestly a really good album. Rise to It's a great opener. Standard Kiss, Betrayed, good heavy track. Hide Your Heart, super catchy. It's got things like Read My Body, super catchy. Silver Spoon, super catchy. Forever, the ballad, did really well. I think that's their best-selling single, in fact. Cadillac Dreams by Gene, that's really cool. Love Me to Hate You, that's a really, really catchy one as well. And it's also got Little Caesar on here, which is sung by Eric Carr. It's probably the best track on the album, I think. Really cool. I think it was originally called Ain't That Peculiar. I think it's on the box set with the original lyrics on it. But yeah, Eric Carr, Bruce Kulick once again, a sort of classic 80s lineup, if you like. Yeah, really like this album. So lot of tracks on it. I don't think it's super, it doesn't seem overly long. This is their second longest album. I think this comes in at about 58 minutes or something like that. But yeah, a lot to enjoy on here, a lot of songs, and not too commercial, not too heavy. It's just a good mix of, yeah, good Kiss tracks basically. So well worth a check out if you've been put off by that. 1989's Hot in the Shade, and that's my number 16. My number 15, another album. Oh well, their albums get a lot of shit. Unmasked, 8th album from 1980. Really cool sort of cartoon strip cover. And yeah, once again, a poppy album. Vinnie Poncia is the producer on this. Anton Fig plays the drums because Peter was pretty much out of the picture by then. And it's got some cool tracks on it. Is That You? It's a really good one to start off with. I really enjoy that. Shandy, super poppy. I think was their best-selling single in Australia or something like that. But yeah, it did really well over there. But yeah, just an enjoyable album to listen to. The Paul stuff's probably the best. Things like Tomorrow is a super catchy one. Yeah, it's got a lot of good stuff on it. What Makes the World Go Round, that's really cool. Gene's stuff is things like Naked City, She's So European, and there's this like Torpedo Girls and Ace Frehley one. Yeah, it's a nice, enjoyable album to listen to. It is very soft for Kiss, and there's, you know, keyboards and what have you going on it, but yeah, I like it. This one's came out, yeah, 1980, and that's Unmasked. It's their 8th album. That's my number 15. Good album. Number 14 is super controversial album The Elder, which was their 9th album, came out in 1981, produced by Bob Ezrin, which he came back after for the first time since Destroyer, and it's their first one with Eric Carr on drums. Ooh, I nearly lost it. And yeah, this one they decided after Unmasked that they were going to do, you know, they were originally going to do like a super heavy, like Back to Metal album, which they did do eventually, but it wasn't this one. And they decided they were going to do like a concept album with a story with a load of old gubbins about, I don't know, some boy who's training up to, you know, overcome evil, etc., etc. It's a load of guff really, but it is quite comical. And yeah, very different sound, a lot of strings, a lot of overblown, say not like Kiss, but rather than like Carnival Souls where they were taking themselves a little bit too seriously. I think they probably were taking themselves a bit too seriously, but it's kind of funny at the same time. And the songs are actually quite cool and different. So yeah, I do quite enjoy this one. I've never really seen the hate for it, but it's very, very different for them. Things like Under the Rose is an amazing track, really heavy. A World Without Heroes is Gene's sort of ballad. That was the big single from it. Things like Eyes is a classic Kiss song as far as I'm concerned. The Oath's a really cool track. Mr. Blackwell's a cool track. Odyssey is sort of overblown, but yeah, it's cool. Ace Frehley's track Dark Light, that's pretty good, and there's Escape from the Island, which is an instrumental as well. Ace did not really want to do this album at all, and it flopped. You know, it didn't sell very well. I think recent history, people have re-evaluated it and seen it for what it is, which is, you know, a brave attempt to do something a bit different. And yeah, they certainly did that, and I think it's not bad. So that's at my number 14, so that's kind of almost halfway through. Yeah, but yeah, decent, well worth a listen. But yeah, interesting, and not your normal Kiss album. That's The Elder from 1981. Number 13, 18th album, Psycho Circus, from 1998. This is produced by Bruce Fairbairn, and this was their big comeback with Ace and Peter, although Ace and Peter don't really play on the album because they weren't seen as, I think, well, there's different stories. Bruce Fairbairn said they weren't good enough. There was rumours that there's some sort of contractual, I don't know, differences. Peter Criss plays drums on the Void, Into the Void, and Ace plays guitars on Into the Void, which he actually sings and is his song, and You Wanted the Best. And that's their only musical involvement. They all sing on You Wanted the Best, and pretty much the guitar is done by Tommy Thayer for the most part, and Kevin Valentine does the drums. And it's an okay album. It's probably not what you were expecting when you were thinking of this big comeback. The title track, Psycho Circus, is a great track, really kicks it off well, superb. Within's a decent one. Apparently that was supposed to be on, or slated to be on, Carnival of Souls, but it got carried over. Into the Void, Ace's track is cool. Pleasure Leads to the State of Rock and Roll. It's, you know, it's a Kiss album. We Are One's a bit of a softer balladier one, and you got What You Wanted the Best, which is a bit of a cheese fest. Raise Your Glasses, good catchy tune. Peter sings on I Finally Found My Way, which is the sort of the token ballad that Peter might sing. Dreaming's quite cool, and Journey of 1,000 Years, decent track to finish off. Not the earth-shattering comeback that, you know, some might have hoped for, but at the same time not a complete bust. I think it's pretty decent, well worth a listen, and that's my number 13, Psycho Circus, and that's their 18th album from 1998. My number 12 is Animalize. It's their 12th album, 12 at 12, and from 1984, produced by Paul Stanley, and this is the only album which features Mark St. John on guitar, and he was a bit of a shredder, to be honest with you. The rumours are that he couldn't perform the same solo twice, so interesting, but he does rip it up, which is interesting because obviously Vinnie was on the album before that and it seemed like he was held back a little bit, but we'll get to that in a bit, whereas Mark St. John's allowed to just like tear it up. And yeah, it's a decent enough album. I think he did 1.5 shows or something with Kiss, and then he developed reactive arthritis in his arm and couldn't play anymore, so yeah, that was that for him. Basically he got replaced by Bruce Kulick, but a decent enough guitarist, and some good songs on here. It's very much rooted in the sort of 80s sort of rock. Heaven's on Fire was the big single and like massive song, really good track. I've Had Enough, Into the Fire starts the album, and that really shreds. That's really cool. Things like Get All You Can Take I really like. Under the Gun. Paul's stuff's pretty much the best on here, which, you know, was pretty much the theme throughout the 80s really. Thrills in the Night's pretty cool. Gene does a few bits. Burn Bitch Burn, which is, you know, super politically correct lyrics, which, you know, gets people up in arms, but hey, it's Kiss, it's Gene Simmons, what did you expect? Murder in High Heels, but yeah, decent rocking album. Does lose its way towards the end, but starts off pretty damn good. So yeah, it's a good album, enjoyable. That's Animalize from 1984, and that's my number 12. Number 11, probably lower down than some people might like, Hotter Than Hell, their second album from 1974. Once again, just because it's at number 12 does not mean that I don't like the album, because I do very much like the album. Got some great stuff on here, some absolute classics. Got to Choose is one of my favourite tracks of theirs. Really love the way it starts off the album. Parasites, obviously a classic one. The title track, Hotter Than Hell, is a classic track. Going Blind, I'm not so keen on. I know a lot of people like that, but for me, it's a bit weird. You've got Let Me Go Rock and Roll, which is just a basic Kiss all the way. Watching You is a superb track, but yeah, Strange Ways, Mainline, Coming Home. It's side 2 is not as good as side 1, not as strong, and that's where for me it loses a few points, but still really good album with some absolutely first class tracks on it. But you know, there's albums that I prefer to Hotter Than Hell, and it's, you know, still an excellent album. Their second album from 1974, I think it only came out, or they recorded it like 3 months after their first album. Produced by Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise. They both did their first album also. But yeah, decent. Really love the cover as well. Really cool artwork. So yeah, excellent album. Hotter Than Hell from 1974, my number 11. The next controversial entry, my number 10 is Destroyer, which is from 1976, their fourth album, produced by Bob Ezrin famously. I've got the original version, and I've also got the 45th anniversary edition as well, which is really nice package. And yeah, do really like that. So this has got the original album remastered, and also a bunch of like demos as well from the sort of similar sort of time, some rarities, and a few live tracks as well. But yeah, Destroyer, so probably their most famous album. Probably if you ask most people what, you know, their favorite, it'll be up there. And it's got some absolutely fantastic tracks on it, some of the best tracks that they've ever done. But there's also some not so good stuff, in my opinion. So you've got Detroit Rock City, amazing. King of the Nighttime World, love that track. God of Thunder, ooh, first 3 tracks, amazing. Great Expectations, bad, not a good track. I mean, you sing along to it, but it's probably one of the worst tracks they've ever done. It's not fantastic. Flaming Youth, not a great fan of that, to be honest with you. Sweet Pain, not a massive fan of that one, to be honest. So those 3 tracks let the album down, and that's why it's at number 10 basically, rather than, you know, higher. Shout Out Loud, yeah, classic. Beth, classic. Do You Love Me, yeah, pretty decent. So you got first 3 tracks are amazing, next 3 tracks really not that great, and then the last 3 tracks are decent. So yeah, great album, overproduced. Overrated in my opinion, just because of the weak middle, and yeah, to be their best album, there's much more consistent, much more enjoyable albums for me than Destroyer, but I still think it's a classic, and I still do very much enjoy it. I'm not saying Destroyer's shit, so, you know, don't get too upset about it, but yeah, I think it's, you know, a little bit overrated, and it's, yeah, 50-50, well, maybe 60-40 in favour of good tracks over not so good tracks, but still well worth a listen, but not what I would consider to be classic Kiss, just because of the, you know, it is very different, to be honest with you, to most of their albums in production and just the sound. But still, classic album. I know a lot of people that hold it in high regard, rightly so, but for me, number 10, Destroyer from 1976. Number 9, I've got Lick It Up, which is their 11th album from 1983. It's their obviously unmasking album, not unmasked, but their first album when they took the makeup off. So Ace Frehley had left. You've got Vinnie Vincent on guitar, who's a stunning guitar player and an excellent songwriter. Eric Carr on drums, and yeah, really good back to basics heavy album. So produced by Simmons, Stanley and Michael James Jackson. I say Vinnie Vincent on guitar, and he co-wrote pretty much every track apart from Fits Like a Glove and Dance All Over Your Face. Every other song, Vinnie has got a co-writing credit on it, and yeah, it just shreds all the way through really. So Exciter, Not For The Innocent, Lick It Up, massive track for them. Young and Wasted, Gimme More, like it's all sort of 90,000 miles an hour. All Hell's Breaking Loose, which is an interesting one. It's got a bit of a rap on it from Paul, which is kind of interesting, but the chorus is super catchy. Million to One, it's a bit of a ballady one. Fits Like a Glove's actually a really cool track. It's probably one of the best tracks. And On the Eighth Day to finish off is not bad. And it's a great album, and good back to basics. The only album that Vinny was credited with, and it's a good one. And that's my number 9, Lick It Up. My number 8, I have got Dressed to Kill. This is their 3rd album, only half an hour long, so short and sweet, but no bad tracks on here as far as I'm concerned. Say it is short and sweet, straight up rock and roll. Room Service, great opener. Two-timer, Ladies in Waiting, so it's just bang, bang, bang. Getaway, Rock Bottom with its acoustic intro. Come On and Love Me, which is a great track. Anything for My Baby. She, which is a classic track as well. Love Her All I Can, brilliant, brilliant song. And then obviously finishes off with Rock and Roll All Night, which obviously is one of their most famous songs. Not the best version of it on here, to be honest with you. Pretty stripped back production. This one was produced by Neil Bogart and Kiss. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed this album just for its sort of back to basics, no mucking about, just straight up rock and roll for half an hour. And just a really enjoyable album. Dressed to Kill, that's my number 8, and that's their 3rd album. Number 7, I have got Revenge, which is their 16th album from 1992. First one, Eric Singer on the drums. Bob Ezrin once again comes back to produce this one. Yeah, Vinnie Vincent was back on co-write as well. So he co-wrote Unholy, Heart of Chrome, and I Just Wanna. Unholy was obviously a great track, and a lot of just a really like consistently good album. Quite heavy, obviously. Unholy, Take It Off, Spit's a really cool track. It's got God Gave Rock and Roll to You 2 on it. Domino's really cool. The ballad Every Time I Look at You I really enjoy, and I Just Wanna is a really good one. But yeah, there's no bad tracks on here, to be honest with you. All really cool. It's got Car Jam 1981. Eric Carr unfortunately passed away during the making of this album, so it's got an early jam from him to finish it off. The album's dedicated to him, so rest in peace, Eric. But yeah, really cool. Great production on this one. Not overproduced by Bob Ezrin. He's not gone too over the top with his ways. And just a solid, really good Kiss album. Heavier than stuff that they've been doing previously. Obviously the previous one was Hot in the Shade, and then Crazy Nights before that. So yeah, this one's just a bit more back to basics, and an excellent album. Really, really cool. So that's why it's my number 7, 16th album, Revenge from 1992. Right, now I've got number 6, and I have got Asylum, which is their 13th album from 1985, produced by Stanley and Simmons. I think it's the most underrated album in their catalogue, quite honestly. Very glammy. If you see the videos for the tracks on here, they look ridiculous. Gene Simmons looks like a drag queen. Stanley's just whatever with his feathered trousers and what have you. So yeah, super camp, super glam, but and it's quite a glam sounding album, but I do kind of like that anyway. So yeah, really cool. Songwriting on here is excellent. Just a really enjoyable album. King of the Mountain to start off with is great any way you slice it. Who Wants to Be Lonely, one of my favourite Kiss tracks of all time. Trial by Fire, I'm Alive's really good, fast one. Love's a Deadly Weapon, the big single Tears Are Falling. Secretly Cruel I really like. That's a Gene song, probably one of his best songs of the 80s. It's got a very traditional Kiss sort of sound to that one. Radar for Love, and then the cheekily titled All Night to finish off, which once again super catchy, super cheesy, and just an enjoyable listen, really, like all sort of the best sort of glam albums are. Just a really good time, and yeah, I do love this album. It's my favourite probably of the non-makeup ones, where it actually is. So yeah, really good. I'm not going to make any excuses for really liking Asylum and having it as my number 6. Just a very, very enjoyable album. Obviously Bruce Kulick, Eric Carr, the classic 80s lineup. Excellent album, very much enjoy that. My number 5, I've got the debut album, so just called Kiss. First album, 1974. Peter Criss did his own makeup on the cover, so he looks a little bit like a mouse, not like his normal stage makeup. They all look a bit of a state, to be honest with you. But yeah, this one came out in 1974, produced by Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise once again, and so many classic songs on here. The production isn't the best, it is quite basic sounding, but when you've got the track listing that this has got, it doesnn't really matter. They do sound obviously better on things like Alive and what have you. But yeah, Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Let Me Know. First 5 tracks are all pretty much flawless. Kissing Time's not the best. Then you've got Juice, which is one of their best tracks. Then you've got Love Theme from Kiss, which is not the best. And then you've got 100,000 Years and Black Diamond to finish it off. So out of the 10 tracks, 8 of them are like standards, basically. They're just all like really classic tracks. Probably Let Me Know's the probably least known out of them, but all the rest of them are, you know, just they still perform live a lot to this day. I say if it was produced a little bit better and there wasn't Kissing Time and Love Theme from Kiss on there, then this would probably be number 1, because you know it's that good, it's just that good, really. So yeah, can't really argue with the first album, number 5. What a debut it was, absolutely superb. Number 4, Love Gun. Painful to have this at number 4 because it's such a good album once again. Just really, really cool, only because it falls away a little bit towards the end, it's not higher. But yeah, it starts off like a fury with I Stole Your Love, which is an amazing track. The lyrically dubious Christine 16 is still a really cool track. Got Love Sells, a Gene song, I really do like that, just sort of shuffles along nicely, really cool. Shock Me, Ace Frehley's track, superb. Tomorrow and Tonight, you know, lyrically, Tomorrow and Tonight, we can rock all day, we'll roll all night is, you know, it's basic, but it's still a super catchy track. Love Gun, one of their best songs ever. Hooligan, which Peter sings, is I do really like that one. And then you've got Almost Human, which is, yeah, it's okay, it's got an interesting chorus. Plaster Caster, which is standard Kiss, but you know, fairly basic. And then you've got the cover of Then She Kissed Me, or was originally called Then He Kissed Me, but which probably could have been done without. They probably could have put something a little bit better on there than that, but you know, they didn't, and that's, you know, unfortunately why the album's number 4 rather than higher, because up till, you know, the last 3 tracks, which just slightly let the side down, it's a pretty flawless album. So really cool, definitely one of my favorites. Love Gun, that's my number 4 from 1977. Number 3, you either love this or you hate it. I love it. Dynasty from 1979, 7th album, Dynasty, however you want to say it, depending on what part of the world you're in. Yeah, produced by Vinnie Poncia. Peter Criss plays drums on Dirty Living, otherwise it's Anton Fig for the rest of it. Dirty Living, obviously Peter sings as well. Largely regarded as some sort of disco album, which it kind of isn't. It's got I Was Made for Loving You on, obviously, which has got disco vibes to it. Then you've got Ace's cover of the Rolling Stones 2000 Man, which is really cool. Then you've got Sure Know Something, and that starts off with a bit of a funky disco verse, and then when the chorus kicks in, it's just an amazing chorus. It's just, yeah, euphorically, I love Sure Know Something. I think it's one of my favourite tracks of theirs. Absolutely superb track, can't praise it highly enough. Then you've got Dirty Living, which is a funky one, which, say, Peter sings and the only one he plays drums on. Gene's Charisma, number 5, the 5th track, sorry, which is a good, cool track. And then you've got Magic Touch, which once again is an absolutely amazing track. It's a real, yeah, it's just such a cool track. One of my favorite all-time Kiss tracks. Just really brilliant. Hard Times, X-Ray Eyes from Gene, and then Save Your Love as well, which is Ace Frehley sings on. He sings on Hard Times as well. So 3 songs sung on by Ace. And yeah, it's got a couple of disco-y and one sort of funky track, but it's just some of my favourite Kiss tracks on here of all time. And that is why it is my number 3 Kiss album. It is what it is, man. Number 2, completely different direction, Creatures of the Night, their 10th album from 1982. Ace Frehley on the cover. He doesn't play on the album, and he wanted to get back to a sort of more heavy sound as well, but by this time he was too fucking far gone, unfortunately. But yeah, a great heavy album, produced by Simmons, Stanley and Michael James Jackson once again. Vinnie Vincent plays some of the guitars, Robin Ford and Steve Farr, I think, was the Mr. guitarist or something like that. But anyway, yeah, great album, great sounding album. The drum sound on this is insane. Just an insane drum sound. It's just probably the best drum sound on any album ever. And some great tracks on here. Creatures of the Night. The first, yeah, I've got the 7-inch single of that, funnily enough. It's one of the first singles I bought, which had like the live version of Rock and Roll All Night on the B-side from Alive. So yeah, they were really cool. Saint and Sinners, slightly weaker track from Gene. Keep Me Coming, I really like. Rock and Roll Hell from Gene. Danger, the classic I Love It Loud. Probably their best ballad they've ever done, I Still Love You. And then you've got Killer, which I really love as well, and really heavy War Machine. So yeah, really heavy sounding album. I say the drum sound on this is just mental. It's just, yeah, just an amazing drum sound. So yeah, Eric Carr, his best performance. Yeah, Ace on the cover. They did re-release it with a different cover with Bruce Kulick on the cover as well, which, you know, he was nowhere near the band at that point. But yeah, Vinnie did a lot of the guitars on it amongst the others that I've mentioned. But superb album from 1982, really heavy, really cool songs. That's Creatures of the Night, their 10th album, real good comeback from them, although it didn't sell particularly well. Lick It Up was their sort of true sort of sales comeback, but critically this is their comeback, really good album. So my number 1 Kiss album, you probably worked it out if you're a Kiss fan. Rock and Roll Over from 1976, their 5th album, produced by Eddie Kramer. And this is a solid rock and roll album, as the title suggests. The jewel case is a little bit broken. And yeah, I love this album, and it's probably the most consistent Kiss album. Every song is a banger. There's no weak tracks on here. So I Want You to start off with, really heavy. Take Me, Calling Dr. Love, which is a classic. Ladies Room, which is one of my favourite, like, deep tracks, if you like, although they do play it live. Baby Driver, which Peter sings, is great. Love 'Em, Leave 'Em, which is, yeah, comedy to watch it live with Gene, with his whole... Anyway, if you've seen it live, you know what he does. Mr. Speed, See You in Your Dreams, Hard Luck Woman, which was the ballad which was apparently written for Rod Stewart, but they kept it and Peter sings that one. And then you've got Making Love to finish off, which is another super cool, like, fast, heavy track. Probably my favourite cover of the Kisses as well. Just a super cool, like just a great album really. It's consistent from start to finish. Every track like absolutely slays, and yeah, what can I say? I do love that cover. So yeah, Rock and Roll Over, it's my #1 Kiss album. That's from 1976. If I was going to say to someone that never listened to Kiss before, you know, what album to start with, it would be that album 100%, because it really just says exactly what they're all about, and is absolutely superb. So that's the studio albums ranked. I've got some of their other albums as well. I've got the first live album, Alive, which is like really cool, obviously. Classic live album. This is the 2-disc remastered version, and yeah, some great versions. Probably like the first 3 albums is cover songs from. So it's got yeah, some really great stuff on here. Really long version of 100,000 Years, and long version of She as well, and probably the definitive version of Rock and Roll All Night. So that's really cool. Live 2, which features songs from their second 3 albums. So from Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun, and also the 4th side is new studio recordings, none of which of them are amazing. Rocket Ride's the Ace Frehley song, and that's probably the best one. All American Man is a decent one as well. You got Rockin' in the USA and Larger Than Life, which are all right. They're both Gene songs. And then you got Anywhere You Want It, which is a cover of the Dave Clark 5 song. I don't really care for that too much, but yeah, awesome album. One of the first Kiss albums I ever heard actually was Alive 2. Then you've got Alive 3, which they did on the Revenge tour, single disc version, this one. Pretty decent. What I liked about Alive 2 is it didn't repeat any songs from Alive 1, whereas Alive 3 is a bit of a mixture of like more recent stuff and older stuff, so it's got a few repeats on here. But I do like the way that it literally starts off with the sound of a nuclear bomb going off at the start of Creatures of the Night, and then again on Juice, it's like you can really hear the pyro. So yeah, that for me, you know, makes it worth having, just that moment alone. So yeah, excellent. I've got the Unplugged album, which they did in the late 90s, I think it was. Probably says on here somewhere 1996, I think. Could be wrong. Anyway, this is where they got Peter and Ace back up on stage, did a few Unplugged things, and that sort of led to them reforming basically and doing the whole reunion tour. So yeah, some good Unplugged versions of things like Coming Home, Plaster Caster, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily hear them do very often. So yeah, that's really cool. And then they've done a bunch of compilations. I haven't got all of them because you really don't need them all. Double Platinum I've got. One of the first Kiss CDs I actually ever bought when they came out on CD. Slightly rejigged versions of things like Detroit Rock City, and a couple of other tracks are slightly different on here. Strut 78, they've redone that with a bit more of a sort of disco-y vibe, but yeah, still really cool. Probably, you know, 20 tracks as far as like the early Kiss stuff is probably the definitive, yeah, sort of compilation of their first 6 albums, if you like. So that's really cool. They did Kiss Killers, which came out after The Elder. As you can see, it's got Eric Carr on the drums and Ace Frehley's on the cover, but Bob Kulick actually does the guitars, because it's a compilation. So you've got 8 older tracks and you've got 4 new tracks, if you like. The new tracks are I'm a Legend Tonight, which is cool, Down on Your Knees, which is a good one as well, Nowhere to Run, which I do like. They're all Paul Stanley songs. Partners in Crime, which is probably the best of the 4. The rest of them is like Cold Gin, Love Gun, Shout It Out Loud, Sure Know Something, Detroit Rock City, God of Thunder, I Was Made for Loving You, and the Alive version of Rock and Roll All Night, spelled N-I-G-H-T. So yeah, that's pretty decent. The 4 studio tracks, funnily enough, have been re-released. They're on the redone version of Creatures of the Night, which has just come out. So on one of the bonus discs there on there. So and the other one I've got is Smashes, Thrashes and Hits, which I did have on vinyl. I got this when it came out. So this has got 2 new tracks on it, which are Let's Put the X in Sex and not Crazy Crazy Nights, You Make Me Rock Hard, which are both Paul songs, and they're pretty standard for the time, but although pretty cool, I do quite like them. But yeah, there's a bit of a mixture of sort of latter stuff and earlier stuff, and they slightly redone them. Eric Carr sings Beth on this one, so they redid that with his vocals, and yeah, slightly different. They're basically remixes, if you like. So not essential, but you know, it's got a couple of tracks which aren't on anything else, so I had to have it really. And that's pretty much it for the Kiss collection. I haven't got the Symphony Alive 4 because a lot of bands did the Symphony thing, like Metallica for example. I think they started it, and it's not really my bag. I will probably pick it up if I see it for cheap, but I'm certainly not going to, you know, lose any sleep over not having Symphony Alive 4. Although I've heard it and it's alright, to be fair, but it's not something that I would choose to listen to. I prefer the original versions. So that's that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the ranking. Let me know if you what your favourite ones are. I'm sure there'll be a few disagreements, but say, remember, this is my ranking, and I do love all the albums. I'm not saying any of them are bad. I do genuinely think they're all cool, but it's just which ones I prefer the most, and it's not going to be the same for everyone, and that's what makes, you know, music and music discussion so cool. So yeah, open for discussion. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think. And please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot of cool content coming up, things like Metallica ranking, Megadeth ranking, going through the M's, Motorhead for example. So that'll be another few missions to do. So a lot of cool stuff coming up, so subscribe so that you know when those videos hit. I do them as often as I can, but it does take a while to sort of compile and make sure that, you know, everything's right and get all the details for the video. So it's not, I can't just do them every day. So yeah, thanks very much for watching once again, and I hope you're all keeping well, and take it steady, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.